I sat in the mediation room, watching Marcus's expensive lawyer arrange papers with theatrical precision. My soon-to-be ex-husband lounged in his Italian suit, radiating the same arrogance that had driven me to build an empire right under his nose. "Mrs. Chen," Marcus's lawyer began, "my client is willing to be generous about the house and cars, but we'll need to include your technology company, Quantum Edge, in the asset division." I kept my face neutral, though inside I was laughing. Marcus had always dismissed Quantum Edge as my cute little coding project, something to keep me busy while he ran his family's prestigious manufacturing business. "Is that so?" I turned to Marcus. "You won half of my cute little project." He smiled condescendingly, the same smile he'd worn when I told him I was starting a company. "Sarah, darling, it's only fair. I supported you while you played entrepreneur. My connections, my network, they helped build whatever success you've had." My lawyer, Helen, touched my arm gently. "We practiced this moment for weeks. Should I show them the documents now?" "Not yet," I said softly. "Let's hear their full offer first." Marcus's lawyer pulled out more papers. "We've had Quantum Edge valued at approximately $40 million. Given Mr. Chen's indirect contributions, we're asking for 50% ownership." I couldn't help but smile. They'd used last year's public valuations, not knowing about our recent government contracts or our pending patents. "And what about Chen Manufacturing?" I asked innocently. "Are we including that in the asset division?" Marcus laughed. "That's my family's company. It's not marital property. My father left it to me before we were married." "Did he?" I opened my laptop. "Helen, I think it's time." She handed Marcus's lawyer a thick folder. "These are the ownership records for Chen Manufacturing from the past 3 years." Marcus rolled his eyes. "I know who owns my company. I have the shell corporations," I interrupted. 7 of them to be exact, all leading back to one parent company. I turned my laptop around, showing them the corporate structure. "Care to guess which company that is?" His lawyer frowned, flipping through papers. "This can't be right. These documents show that Chen Manufacturing was purchased by Quantum Edge," I finished. "3 years ago, when your father decided to sell secretly rather than hand you full control." Marcus's face went pale. "My father would never." "He did." I pulled out my phone, showing them a photo from 3 years ago, me shaking hands with Marcus's father in my office. "He knew you weren't ready to lead, so he came to me, said he'd been watching my cute little coding project disrupt the industry. He wanted someone who could modernize the family legacy." "You're lying." Marcus stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I would have known if my company was sold." "Would you?" I raised an eyebrow. "You never read the quarterly reports I sent home. Never attended the board meetings I scheduled. You were too busy telling everyone how you were born to run the company to notice who actually owned it." His lawyer was rapidly typing on his phone, presumably verifying the documents. "Mr. Chen, she's right. Chen Manufacturing was acquired by Quantum Edge through a series of private transactions. The ownership change was filed with the SEC 3 years ago. But I've been running the company," Marcus sputtered. "No," I corrected him, "you've been managing daily operations, under my direction. Who did you think approved your budgets, your expansion plans? Did you ever wonder why the board always seemed to support your ideas after they were revised?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every decision Marcus had proudly announced at dinner, every strategy he boasted about, all of it had crossed my desk first. "And Quantum Edge?" his lawyer asked weakly. I smiled. "Currently valued at $2.8 billion. Those government contracts you didn't know about. They're revolutionizing military technology. The patents you didn't bother to investigate, they're reshaping quantum computing." Marcus collapsed back into his chair. All this time, I agreed, you were working for me, rather unsuccessfully, I might add. Chen Manufacturing's efficiency is down 23% under your management." Helen distributed new papers. "Given these revelations, we've prepared a revised settlement offer. Mrs. Chen will retain full ownership of both companies naturally." "And what do I get?" Marcus asked hoarsely. "A chance to keep your job," I replied, "if you can improve your performance metrics. I hear the new CEO is quite demanding." "New CEO?" "Me." I stood up, smoothing my dress. Your father's final condition for the sale was that I take direct control once the truth came out. He seems to think the company needs a firmer hand." Marcus's lawyer was frantically whispering in his ear, likely explaining just how thoroughly outmaneuvered they were. 3 years of ownership records, SEC filings, and board minutes proved everything. "Why?" Marcus finally asked. "Why not just tell me?" "Because you never asked. I gathered my things. Too busy mansplaining business to your wife to notice she was your boss. By the way, those late-night meetings you've been having with your secretary? Those ended 3 weeks ago when I had HR transfer her to our Singapore office." His face reddened. "You can't." "I can, and I did. Consider it your first performance review." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus, the board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late. I'm not as forgiving of tardiness as your father was." As I walked out, Helen trailing behind me with a satisfied smile, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus's father. "Is it done?" "Yes," I typed back. "He knows." "Good," came the reply. "Maybe now he'll learn what real business acumen looks like." I smiled, remembering the day the elder Mr. Chen had come to my office, impressed by how I'd built Quantum Edge while his son was busy playing golf with clients. "Your son wanted his father's company," I typed. "He just didn't expect it to come with his wife as his boss." After all, some lessons in humility are best learned in the boardroom. The next morning, I arrived at Chen Manufacturing's headquarters at precisely 8:30 a.m. The security guard who had always demanded my visitor's pass now scrambled to open the door, having received the company-wide memo about their true CEO. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen," he stammered. "I'm so sorry about all those times Water under the bridge, David." I smiled, remembering how many times I quietly observed the company's operations under the guise of visiting my husband. "Though I appreciate that you were always diligent about security." The executive floor was buzzing with nervous energy. Marcus's secretary's desk was empty, a reminder of the swift changes I'd already implemented. I walked into what had been Marcus's office, now mine, and found him waiting there, looking lost. "You're early," I noted, setting my briefcase on what was now my desk. "That's new. I couldn't sleep," he admitted, standing awkwardly by the wall of family photos. 3 generations of Chen men proudly leading the company. I keep thinking about how I never noticed. The signs were there. I began reorganizing the desk. "Remember last year's strategic pivot to sustainable manufacturing? Your brilliant idea came from a proposal I'd left on the kitchen table." "I thought those were your students' papers," he muttered. "You said you were teaching business classes." "I was, at Harvard, as a guest lecturer on corporate acquisitions." I pulled out the photo of him and his father, replacing it with one of the entire board, including me, standing quietly in the back during my charity fundraiser visits. "Your father attended every lecture." Marcus stared at the new photo arrangement. "He knew all along that you were building something bigger than both our companies combined?" "Yes." I opened my laptop, bringing up the morning's agenda. "He said he wanted his grandchildren to have a proper business role model." Right on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from our daughter Amy. "Kill it at the board meeting, Mom. Show Dad how it's really done." "Does Amy know everything?" Marcus asked, noticing my small smile. "She's known for a year. That internship program she did last summer. It was at Quantum Edge's R&D department. She's brilliant with quantum algorithms." I looked up at him, something you might have noticed if you'd attended any of her science fairs. The board members began filing in, each nodding respectfully in my direction. They'd all known the truth and had helped keep my ownership quiet at the elder Mr. Chen's request. Marcus watched them, probably recalling all the times he'd bragged about how they followed his leadership. "Take your seat, Marcus." I gestured to a chair halfway down the table, no longer at the head. "We need to discuss the company's new direction." He sat down, looking smaller in his expensive suit than I'd ever seen him. The board members opened their packets, which detailed my plans for merging Chen Manufacturing's operations with Quantum Edge's technology. "As you can see," I began, standing at the head of the table, "our first priority is modernizing the production line. Marcus's management has focused on traditional methods, resulting in a 23% efficiency decline. We'll be implementing Quantum Edge's AI systems to optimize operations." Marcus raised his hand like a schoolboy. "But our methods are time-tested." "Your methods are obsolete," I corrected. While you were clinging to your father's strategies, our competitors were innovating. The only thing that saved this company was my behind-the-scenes intervention with the board." One of the board members, Mr. Zhang, nodded. "Mrs. Chen's proposals have been the only reason we've maintained market share, though we had to present them as modifications to your ideas, Marcus. All those revisions to my proposals." Marcus looked stunned. "That was you." "Consider it marriage counseling through corporate governance," I said with a slight smile. "Though clearly only one of those institutions is worth saving." The meeting continued as I outlined the merger plans. Quantum Edge's technology would revolutionize Chen Manufacturing's operations, while the manufacturing infrastructure would help scale my quantum computing innovations. It was the perfect synthesis, exactly what the elder Mr. Chen had envisioned when he first approached me. "And my role?" Marcus finally asked as the meeting wound down. I pulled up his performance metrics on the screen. "That depends. Your operational decisions have been questionable, your personnel management problematic, and your strategic planning almost non-existent. However, you're still excellent at client relations. When you actually attend the meetings, I distributed new organizational charts. I'm offering you a position as Chief Client Officer. No operational authority, but you'll handle key relationship management, if you can maintain professional boundaries this time." The board members smirked. They all knew about the secretary incident. "And if I refuse?" Marcus straightened his tie, trying to reclaim some dignity. "Then you can update your LinkedIn profile." I closed my laptop. "Your father's company needs modernization, Marcus. Either be part of that future or step aside completely. Your choice." As the board members filed out, Marcus remained seated, staring at his new job description. "All those times I told you to leave the business discussions to me were highly entertaining," I finished. "Especially when you tried to explain basic concepts I've literally written textbooks about. Dad really chose you over me. He chose the company's future over your ego." I gathered my things. "The question is, can you do the same?" My phone buzzed again. Amy sending a photo from her school's quantum computing club, which I'd secretly funded. "Mom, we just solved the algorithmic problem you sent. When can I show Dad?" I turned the phone to Marcus. "You have two choices. Keep mourning your lost position, or start building relationships with the people who matter most. Starting with your daughter, who's probably smarter than both of us combined." He stared at the photo, perhaps really seeing Amy's brilliance for the first time. "She did that. She did. No thanks to your empty chair at her science competitions." I headed for the door. Board meetings are Mondays at 9 a.m. Family dinners are every night at 7 p.m. I suggest you stop missing both. After all, some CEOs measure success in dollars, but the best ones measure it in generations. 6 months later, I sat in my office reviewing the latest merger reports. Chen Manufacturing's efficiency had improved by 45% since implementing Quantum Edge's systems, and our stock had doubled. But the most interesting changes weren't showing up in the financial metrics. My phone lit up with a message from Marcus. "Amy's quantum computing presentation starts in 30 minutes. Meeting room 3. On my way, I replied, smiling how much had changed. When I reached the conference room, I found Marcus already there, helping Amy set up her presentation materials. She was explaining her latest algorithm breakthrough, and to my surprise, he was actually listening. "Mom," Amy beamed. "Dad's been helping me practice. He says my quantum entanglement theory could revolutionize our manufacturing process." I raised an eyebrow at Marcus, who shrugged. "I've been taking those quantum computing courses you recommended. Turns out our daughter is a better teacher than any professor." The room filled with board members and department heads. Amy stood confidently at the podium. At 16, she already had more natural business presence than Marcus had ever managed. "As you can see," she said, pointing to her complex diagrams, "by applying quantum principles to our production line, we can increase efficiency by another 60%. I watched Marcus watching our daughter. Gone was the dismissive executive who had missed every school event. In his place was a father finally learning to recognize brilliance that didn't mirror his own ego. After the presentation, during the enthusiastic applause, he leaned over to me. "I was wrong about so many things." "Oh, do tell." "About business, about you, about Amy," he smiled ruefully. "About what real success looks like." The board members were crowding around Amy, asking detailed questions about her proposals. Mr. Zhang caught my eye and nodded approvingly. He'd been right when he suggested that revealing my ownership might save more than just the company. Your father would be proud, I told Marcus. Not of the company's performance, though that's improved too, but of this. I gestured toward him and Amy, now deep in discussion about quantum applications. He knew what he was doing, didn't he? When he chose you? He knew what you needed to learn. I checked my watch. Speaking of which, isn't it time for your weekly client dinner? Marcus shook his head. Cancelled it. Amy's got her science fair tonight. Thought that was more important. I tried to hide my surprise. 6 months ago, he would have chosen the client without hesitation. Mom, Amy called out, can we show them the new R&D lab? The one Dad helped design. Another surprise. Marcus had spent the past month working with our research team, applying his client knowledge to create a more practical testing facility. It was the first time he'd built something without trying to take all the credit. Of course, I agreed. Though remember, dinner's at 7. Your grandmother's coming. Dad's cooking, Emmy announced proudly. He's been taking classes. I turned to Marcus, amused. Classes? Well, he straightened his now less expensive tie. You ran 2 companies while raising our children. The least I can do is learn to make dinner. As we walked to the R&D lab, I received a message from the elder Mr. Chen. How's my son doing? I watched Marcus explaining quantum principles to board members, his arm around Amy's shoulders, finally comfortable in a role that supported rather than dominated. He's learning, I replied. Sometimes the best way to lead is to learn how to follow first. After all, success isn't always about who sits at the head of the table. Sometimes it's about building a table worth sitting at together. And as I watched my husband and daughter lead the tour of their jointly designed lab, I realized that maybe the most profitable merger wasn't between our companies. It was between our family's past and its future, because some investments pay dividends in more than just dollars and cents. They pay them in moments like these.